everyone, and welcome to Lesson 13.4A. I've entitled this video, California and the Gold Rush. This video is going to cover pages 365 to 367. California Gold Rush. When gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill in 1848, people from all over the world traveled to California in search of riches. Those who arrived in 1849 were called 49ers. As one official reported, quote, "The farmers have thrown aside their plows, the lawyers their briefs, the doctors their pills, the priests their prayer books, and all are now digging gold." Some people arrived by sea. Others traveled on the Oregon Trail or the Santa Fe Trail. Americans made up about 80% of the 49ers. Others came from Mexico, South America, Europe, and Australia. About 300 men arrived from China, the first large group of Asian immigrants to settle in America. Although some eventually returned to China, others remained and established California's Chinese American community. Question number 1. What caused people from all over the world to travel to California in 1848? The California Gold Rush. Gold was discovered. Question 2. What were 49ers? 49ers were the people who moved to California in 1849, thus the 49er name, to search, dig, find gold. Question 3. What were the three main ways people made their way to California? Well, number 1, they traveled there by sea, by the Pacific Ocean in many cases. And number 2, they traveled on the Oregon Trail. And number 3, they traveled on the Santa Fe Trail. The Californios. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ended the war with Mexico and made Californios, Mexicans living in California, citizens of the United States. The treaty also guaranteed them the rights to their lands. The land law of 1851, however, established a group of reviewers who examined the Californios' land rights. When a new settler claimed land that was held by a Californio, the two parties would go to court. There, it was the Californio who had to prove his or her ownership of the land. Some Californios were able to prove their claims. Many others lost their cases and their land. Question number 4. How did the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo impact California's history with our history? Well, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ended the war with Mexico, and because of that treaty ending on the favor of America's side winning the war, California became a part of the United States. So therefore, the Californios, who were Mexicans living in California, became citizens of our United States. Question number 5. Why would many Californios be frustrated with the land law of 1851? They were frustrated because in these cases, it was their land, and yet when a settler would say, "Oh no, it's my land," they would have to go to court, but instead of the new settler having to prove it was their land, the Californio had to defend that it actually was their land and be able to prove it. And in some cases, they weren't able to prove that, and therefore they lost that case and they lost their land. Very frustrating for the Californios. The life of a 49er. As people rushed to a new area to look for gold, they built new communities. Towns and small cities appeared almost overnight. One site on the Yuba River had only 2 houses in September 1849. A year later, a miner arrived to find a bustling town of 1,000 people, quote, with a large number of hotels, stores, groceries, bakeries, and gambling houses. Cities also flourished during the gold rush. As ships arrived daily with gold seekers, San Francisco became a boom town, growing quickly from a tiny village to a city of about 20,000 people. Most 49ers had no experience in mining. Whenever they heard that gold had been discovered at a particular site, they rushed to it and attacked the hillsides with pickaxes and shovels. They spent hours bent over stream beds, panning for gold dust and nuggets. Panning involved gently swirling water and gravel in a pan in order to remove dirt and, perhaps, reveal a small speck of gold. The California Gold Rush more than doubled the world's supply of gold. For all their hard work, however, very few 49ers achieved lasting wealth. Most found little or no gold. Many of those who did find gold lost their riches through gambling or wild spending. Boomtown merchants, however, made huge profits. They could charge whatever they liked for food and other essential items because there were no other nearby stores that sold these products. For example, an immigrant named Levi Strauss sold the miners sturdy pants made of denim. His Levi's made him rich. Question number 6. What were boomtowns? Boomtowns were areas that would go from very few people in it to a lot of people overnight because gold was discovered in that area. So a place that had been abandoned prior, or very few people living there, all of a sudden would spring up with bunches of people, all in search of riches through gold mining. Question number 7. Describe the process of panning for gold. Well, these miners, as you can see pictured on the right here, they would take a pan and they would put it into the water, and then they would swirl the water and the gravel in the pan, and hoping to get rid of the dirt, and hopefully in the bottom of the pan would be the gold that would then, of course, make them rich. Question number 8. What did the California Gold Rush do to the world's supply of gold? It more than doubled it. So this was a huge financial impact on the world. Question number 9. Explain the difference between the amount of money made by most 49ers versus the amount of money made by boomtown merchants. And this is the great irony of the California Gold Rush. Most miners did not make money. They found little or no gold at all. And even those that did make money, many of them blew it on gambling or other types of crazy spending. However, the people that did get very wealthy in the California Gold Rush were the merchants, the people selling the goods and services to the miners. So you could charge, due to the law of supply and demand, because supply was limited and the demand was high, you could charge higher prices for basic food items, and therefore these things were more expensive. So for miners, a lot of times they spent more money trying to buy the supplies than they could make from actually mining gold themselves. And thus the merchants came off very well during that California Gold Rush. Question 10. How did Levi Strauss take advantage of the California Gold Rush? Well, he made a type of sturdy pants made of denim called, of course, Levi's. And thus the blue jean era began in our country and thus became a staple of our fashion. Gold Rush Society. Mining camps contained men of all backgrounds, but few women. Lonely and suffering hardships, many men spent their free hours drinking, gambling, and fighting. Mining towns had no police or prisons. As a result, citizens known as vigilantes formed committees to protect themselves. Vigilantes took the law into their own hands and acted as police, judge, jury, and sometimes executioner. Question number 11. Describe what you might see in a mining camp or mining town or boomtown. Well, you would see mostly men. You would see many men there drinking, gambling, and fighting. You wouldn't see in many of these towns police or prisons, but you would see vigilante groups going around basically becoming the law. And this, what you might call a posse, a group of people would gather, and if they thought somebody was guilty, as you can see the picture on the right, they would often take the law into their own hands and do their own form of justice. Economic and political progress. The gold rush had lasting effects on California. Agriculture, shipping, and trade grew to meet the demand for food and other goods. Many people who had arrived looking for gold stayed to farm or run a business. Rapid growth brought the need for better government. In 1849, Californians applied for statehood and wrote a constitution. The Constitution's ban on slavery, however, caused a crisis in Congress. Southern states opposed California's admission. Congress eventually worked out a compromise by which California became a free state in 1850. Question number 12. What were the lasting impacts of the California Gold Rush on California? Well, you saw a huge migration to California, and of course today California is by far our most populated state, so it's crazy to think how quickly that happened. But a lot of people went out to California searching for gold, but ended up staying and running their own business or farm. Huge agricultural gains are found in California today. It's vastly making tons of money in the agricultural field, of course also in the tech industry. But California became a state, and it became our, arguably one of our most important states since it is our most populated. Question 13. What did California do in 1849 to change its history? Well, they applied for statehood and they wrote a constitution. Question number 14. What did California's constitution ban? It banned slavery. Now, this took a compromise, one of the great last compromises that we had in our country before the Civil War. And in this compromise, California was admitted to our country as a free state. Question 15. Why did the concept of California joining the United States cause a crisis? Well, it caused a crisis because, as you remember, we've talked about this, there was a balance of power between the northern states and the southern states over free states and slave states. And California wanting to enter as a free state was going to disrupt that. And so Southerners fought it. And this is a compromise we'll talk about in a later video. Northerners did have to give away some concessions in this compromise. And one of them was the Fugitive Slave Act, which we'll get to in a later chapter. Well, thank you so much for watching. Before we go, of course, I have a joke for you. What did the greedy gold miner say? That's all mine, mine, mine. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.